All right, we're recording for chapter 21 of The Password is Courage. And I'm not going to complain. I'm not. But it's not my style how the timeline is flowing here. Because we do go from how the night goes for him in the death camp portion of Auschwitz 2 months later, him at a different camp when the end is coming, basically. I'll get there. But like the previous chapter, though, I do want to just read, not the entire first paragraph, but at least a few sentences from how this chapter starts. Half stifled by the atmosphere, now quickly turning rancid with the stench of unwashed bodies, he made an attempt to compose himself for sleep, but was impossible. The discomfort of his crouching position, the febrile mumblings of someone near him, the shock and fear of knowing he was in the very pit of the damned, prevented any chance of relaxing. By the way, the whole thing that is nice with e-readers where you can press and hold and gives you a dictionary definition of a word. Febrile, for febrile mumblings here, is like that of a fever. So somebody apparently has a fever and is mumbling. But anyway. I'm just trying to check if there's anything more there, or maybe it's a little later where it does get mentioned about the basically the only life in that hut that is actually living would be the bugs. But before getting to that, you could hear various things, including snatches of conversation. But also, there were sounds of the soup bowls being used for another purpose, and he realized with a final humiliation that it was forbidden to leave the hut during the night. It's not getting specific yet, but basically does later on. Also mentions about the 3-tier bunks would often collapse under their load. Those among the injured who were still conscious would be made to clean up the blood, and then they, because if they were injured and that means that their work quota won't be fulfilled, well, then they're very likely going to the gas chamber. So it's a terrible thing. It does actually kind of make you, well, it would be more comfortable, but it does kind of make you wonder how many people necessarily were actually running for the bunks with that danger thing. So okay, so now we get towards the morning. In a few moments, the door of the hut swung with a crash, and a raucous voice... oh, wait, no, this is still doing that. Bellowed in German for silence, because one of the bunks has collapsed, and so there's a bunch of noise from the people caught in that. Somewhere an inmate started to say something. Immediately there came the flashes and deafening intensity of 2 rifle shots. With hardly a pause, the door was slammed to again. In horror, Carwood listened for the shrieks of the wounded to begin. There was a stunned quiet, unbroken even by the former whimpering, and he prayed that the bullets had been aimed at the ceiling. Then continuing on, the night became a feverish mosaic, impossible to recall in detail, of terrified grunts as men started in their sleep, more door crashing and shouts from the guards, calls for a bowl or to God, words of anger which flickered fiercely and died as suddenly. Doubled up as he was, every movement of the men beside him gave fresh pain. His body seemed alive with insects, the only replete form of life in the hut. Their depredations raised lumps burning with irritation. It's really bad. So yeah, that's another reference to the bowls. But there is going to be more. Hang on, I'm just... Okay. So, I thought there was one more where it was a bit more specific, but here, let me just read this. So anyway, finally, morning comes. They all come out and they need to be counted. And it does describe the guards take pleasure in repeating the count, because it humiliates them, but also gives more time for some of them to collapse in the mud there, and that person's not going to die. So they do that. They then get another 15 minutes at the pole. But with the order to dismiss when it eventually came, began a 15-minute period to scrabble again for the latrine pole, though always with a wary eye towards the guards. A minor infraction earned such punishments as having to carry 4 or 5 bricks wherever one went, or trotting like a dog behind a guard as he bicycled round the camp. Inevitably, a considerable number failed to reach the pole, particularly those who were weak from enteritis or dysentery and needed it most. Don't remember what enteritis is, but dysentery, I played Oregon Trail. Back in the hut, the brawl of the previous evening was repeated as the bin of soup made its appearance. Coward shuddered as he watched the unwashed bowls put to their daytime use, snatched ferociously from man to man. Okay, so to be clear here, what's being referred to is the bowls were used as the latrine during the night because you couldn't leave. And despite that, though, they would be unwashed, and that's what you would then have to use for the soup the next day. But it's still, that's your food, so yeah. Yeah. Finally, he is, they go out on the work detail, and he is able to escape. Nobody realizes that it was him. And he's able to go down and make the switch back. And he does ask the question while he is changing, taking off the pajama suit and putting on his clothes. Did he enjoy himself? He spoke into the darkness as he did up his buttons. His arm was seized, and a stuttering effusion of thanks, unmistakable though in a strange language, poured from the inmate. So it's like, yes, the slave, the Jew that he traded positions with, very thankful, very much enjoyed it. And the next highlight that I have here is what Tish explains to him for how it went. Yeah, how did he get on? He was in Bleedin' Fairyland. By the way, Tish does have an accent, is definitely being written in at this point. The boys dug up their Red Cross parcels, and we had a proper blowout. None of us could understand a word he said. Didn't make no difference. Gave him a damn good scrub first. Struth, you should have seen his ribs. Seen quite a few since yesterday. Sorry, yes. Then we kitted him out with underpants and vest. His face was a picture. Do you know I could put his hand round his thigh? My hand round his thigh? Never seen anyone so thin. When I gave him his plate of grub, he grabs me and gives me a real smacker on the cheek, tucks into it like he hasn't eaten for a year, and then falls dead asleep directly he's finished. We had put him to bed. Not used to it, I suppose. You're not kidding, Tish. The reference to the underpants and vest, also when they were changing, because when Coward got down there, he had already taken off the clothes. So it's like, yeah, come on, just need to get here and can do that. And he did describe it was then described as he was in underwear. Okay, yeah. I was trying to remember what this next highlight is for. So yeah, it's like, and this was, Coward had, this is at the end of the day that he finally gets the explanation, finally is told all this at the barracks hut, because he's not going to do it when he's on a work party there, when there are guards around. But then talks about how it took several days for the dreams of the slave camp to stop haunting him. Yeah. Was it? Yeah, I mean, it wore on him for a while. And eventually it all dulled so he could be his usual lighthearted self. But he was acute enough to notice as the months rolled slowly on their course that a new vigilance, a special watchfulness had crept into the manner of the Germans surrounding him. For one thing, they changed his personal guard very frequently, and seldom now did he have his old watchdog Fritz. And all the new guys were probably ordered no rule breaking at all. They would take the bribes, but they wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't allow anything. So it's like, yeah, this isn't good. They're watching me. So that kind of leaves all he can do now is hold escape classes at the end of the day. And I think there's one other thing, but I don't quite remember. Oh, it is also mentioned, even though he is the man of confidence, so he needs to be able to, he does things for the Red Cross. So he needs to be able to go back to Lambsdorff to do some of that stuff, like to get the parcels, bring them back. The Germans are actually interfering with that, which technically he would be able to complain about, because that is something they are not supposed to be doing. It doesn't say that he ever complains, because, I mean, technically that would be in his character from what had happened before, but he knows there's something up. Eventually, eventually a prisoner is transferred from Lambsdorff to there and brings a note, and now he gets to know what's going on. Wait. Okay, yeah. Okay, the highlight here is after that. So basically, is it the Gestapo? Yeah. So the Gestapo have determined. They're guessing though, but still, they figure that the night that Otto and his wife, their home was raided, the Germans at Auschwitz, at Bonowitz, did eventually find the cut portion of the fence. But everyone is accounted for, so no one escaped, but they could have. So the Gestapo figure, okay, somebody maybe did break out, went to the place, just wasn't caught, and then got back in. And potentially even escaped with what incriminating evidence the Gestapo were hoping to find there, such as the dynamite. So they don't necessarily know it's Coward, but who else would it be? He's the one that would have regular access to the town, and he's strongly suspected of a lot of sabotage, so yeah. So the plan is this. Okay. So the plan is, from Lambsdorff, we're going to move you out of Monowitz. We're going to move you out of Auschwitz. We're going to have you transferred to a different camp called Teschen, something like that. It's like 20 miles northeast. To just, like, if we get you out of there, hopefully that'll make it harder for them to get access to you, to determine that, yes, you are who they want. But when getting there, it's not quite that good. Yeah, got bad news for you, boy. It looks as if Jerry has twigged your little lark or something. Why, what's up? Well, the Feldwebel, I never remember what that word means. I think it's just a higher-up officer or something. He has told me you'd be moved on Saturday to the interrogation center in Berlin. You know what that means, don't you? For translation, that would mean, they're going to interrogate him until they get the answers they want, and then they'll kill him. In other words, they're going to kill him, no matter what. And also, I forgot to mention, the original Fritz, who would have been witness to, he wouldn't necessarily, he was party to it technically, he wasn't accessory, but he did witness Coward doing various things in the town. Fortunately, he joined a battalion on the Eastern Front, so he is no longer around to pretend, because he would be potentially a loyal German who, if the Gestapo asked, would tell him things. It's like, yes, it must be him. So fortunately, that's not an issue. But he does need to have everyone at the camp swear not to tell, because, like, no, this is a bad situation. And then getting there, it's like that conversation was him talking to the sergeant major in charge of Teschen already. Now, fortunately, he has a plan, because Coward is like, I don't know how I can get out of this short of actually escaping, but it's like, they're not going to let that be easy, and they'll just kill me. And it's like, I'm up against the Gestapo now, not just the regular guards. But But yeah, so it's basically you gotta disappear. Well, how am I supposed to do that? They know I'm here. Of course they do. Well, you'll have to disappear just the same. I'll put you down in the list of men going out to the mines in Bobrek tomorrow morning. Sorry, Bobrek tomorrow morning. Just, I was trying to go one word at a time, and I should not have been. I'm not that bad, reader. Sorry, no, it's like my eyes were just starting to look around a little bit. Anyway, you can join them as Private Johnson. You can take up duties as assistant to the man of confidence over there. TSM Powell is his name. Sandy to his pals. Nice bloke. You'll like it. Coward could have kissed him. You're a wizard, Greg, he exclaimed. But do you think they'll spot me? Don't see why they should, said the older man thoughtfully. You have to take the scrambled egg off your sleeves, of course, so that would be identifying him as an NCO, as a sergeant major. I think I can fix the rest. You see, we've been covering up for Johnson ever since he escaped over a month ago, so as the Jerrys don't know that he's not here, you can take his place. The only point is, of course, that BSM. Howard will have to be put down as missing, believed escaped, and it won't be seen anymore. I'm not sure what that BSM. Okay, not entirely sure what that is referencing, but it's basically they have been covering up for somebody having escaped, so there's already a missing man. It's just the Germans don't know, so we'll just say you're the missing man now. Have you somewhere that no one should recognize you, except for our people maybe, which they're not going to say anything. And then we'll just have to have you down as missing. So it's like, that'll just work, because now it looks like he's escaped, but the count is otherwise right. So, yeah, they're not gonna find him that way. So that seems good, and it works out for months there. And in fact, when he is over there and talks to the sergeant major, there's even like, any chance of escaping? You're not doing that. I mean, no, seriously, they will kill you. All right, you do not get to escape. If you slightest error there, you're dead. You ain't escaping. You're staying here. All right, this is where you will survive. And Cal was like, yeah, doesn't like it, but he has to accept it. And it works for quite a while, because last it was mentioned, well, I don't know how long an essay is working. Weeks, I think, is reasonable, because next we know when any specific date, it's Christmas. Which does kind of suck, because the Red Cross parcels have been getting fewer and fewer, and eventually have stopped. Which, my guess, is most likely because the war is coming to its end. In fact, he does get the news that the Allied advance on the west has slowed, but that's likely, the suspicion is they're going to make a significant push. The Italian front has also slowed, but that's, again, intentional to, like, hold up certain Axis powers in places. And the Russians are continuing to push as well, and that's the front that they would be most interested in, because that's the one that's nearest to where he is. And indeed, Christmas Day, just looking out, he sees some lights at a window. It's like, wonder if they're doing maneuvers or something, because maybe that's a flare. But then he's also hearing something, then it's like, goes outside and everyone follows, because they were actually near enough to hear the artillery guns going. So they all think this is great. We're going to be rescued, because once the Russians come over, they would be liberating a camp, so all the POWs will be freed. In all that they had gone through, they should have known better. Yeah. So I'm not just saying this because I kind of sort of remember what happens in the rest of the book, but it is also, just to my knowledge, what actually did happen. They started consolidate. The Germans did not want to leave POWs behind to be liberated. They wanted to. Their first priority would be to move personnel and equipment in to try to hunker down, but they would also bring the POWs with them. If nothing else, it makes sense, because I was like, yeah, there's all the war crime stuff, but it's also, you don't want your enemy to be strengthened by suddenly they're getting more people to their ranks. Even if it's the POWs would have to go back to heal, to recover, they could then be redeployed weeks or months later. That's not a good situation, so you would want to control them you would want to keep them with you unless it is a no, we have to just get moving and all that. So yeah. And I think that I'm pretty sure that is actually part of how he escapes ultimately, is they just have to up and run. The Germans do, and they manage to sneak by. But it's also kind of, well, yeah, no, they must move them. Because I do remember it being the Americans and find them, not the Russians. So they have to get, like, into Germany. Because, and towards the western side, because the Russians are coming from the east. So yeah, we'll see. I don't quite remember all the details there, but yeah. Yeah, so not many chapters left. I'm just trying to think. Oh, it is mentioned in there how Coward does acknowledge that Yat never found the doctor. He mentions this to Tish. But as I said, in the actual history, and it might be also mentioned in here, the doctor did survive, and they may have met up later, but it was the whole Coward couldn't testify because they never met in the camp. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I think it's got to be in the book. Just like in chapter 24 or something. It must be there, not just that I read that when looking him up. I could be wrong, but we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, lots of horror in there. Oh, and I've some of the notes. To describe to Tish what it was like, he references Dante's Inferno. And even says, yeah, I'm not really much for poetry, but I remember as a kid seeing images from it, seeing drawings from it. And that, Dante must have known something. Because the images include skinny, naked people all fighting each other. It's like, that's essentially what he saw. Skinny, emaciated, almost to the point of appearing as skeletons. All fighting over the soup bowls. The horribly fouled, but what you have, soup bowls. So, yeah. And by the way, my guess for how those bowls would work is it would catch whatever it was, and then once the doors were open so you could dispose of it, then you would dispose of it. Because, I guess otherwise maybe it is that there was just like a corner of the room, you use the bowl, then you pass it off to somebody who just keep passing it off. It's that seems unlikely, but maybe. But yeah, it's... Fortunately, he's out of that. Out of Auschwitz. He is away from all of his friends, which is a bit of a problem, but I will say he can make new friends. And the movie ends, and I can see the image there of the movie's ending, and I think the ending in the movie is accurate to the book. He does escape with somebody else, with a friend. So it could be that while the Putos are being pulled in away from the borders, that he does meet up with somebody, or maybe that he already knew, or maybe he does just make a new friend. I don't quite remember, but we shall see. We shall see as I continue. Alright, just 3 chapters left. See you in the next one.